Alrighty, friends. So I'd like to begin just by letting everybody know what we do on Wednesdays, in case people have forgotten. But we have been studying this book, Standing at the Edge, by Roshi Joan Halifax, for the last couple of years. And for the last several weeks, we have been talking about one of the edge states called compassion, and how the edge state of compassion is such that when we go over the edge, we can fall into distress and experience something that we all know as compassion fatigue, where we've given and we've given and we've given and we've given and we've forgotten to replenish the well. And so we feel depleted. And from places of compassion fatigue, we can harbor resentments, we can become unskillful in our actions and speech. We can suddenly start entertaining expectations that at the beginning of an endeavor weren't even there. And now suddenly, because we're running on fumes, suddenly we have all these expectations of how things should be, how people should be, and so on and so forth. When we experience that edge state where we've gone over the edge, one of the somewhat immature reactions to that experience is to then start practicing compassion from a great distance from the edge. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to get so fatigued. We don't want to risk burnout. So we keep ourselves at a safe distance from that edge state in a self-protective sort of way. It's very common. In fact, it's pretty normal and even healthy at times because it gives us a moment to be discerning. However, we can't stay so far from the edge all the time, because if we were to do that with our expression of compassion, it would lead us to become inactive. We wouldn't actually act on our compassion. We would think about it, but we wouldn't actually do anything to engage. So that edge state is that place, that really fertile ground for us to learn and grow regarding the conditions of when we've overextended ourselves or underextended ourselves. And in this case, with respect to compassion. Today, we're going to read a little bit from a chapter that Roshi calls Compassion Enemies. Compassion's Enemies. But before I do that, I'd like to just chime us all in, and we'll settle in. Let's set an intention and a motivation for this practice with a bit of awareness that coming into a Recovery Dharma meeting is an act of great compassion. And if you can be present to this meeting, to yourself, to all that is arising within you, to address feelings of discomfort, irritation, anger, and to apply the spirit of compassion to all of that. And to know that this is a community of people who are experiencing the same things just like you. If you're experiencing annoyance or irritation, you can be guaranteed that someone else in the community is experiencing it too, or at least has. So just like you can offer them compassion. One of the habit energies that we're all healing from is our reactivity. And one of the beautiful antidotes to reactivity is responding to ourselves and others with compassion. But we are challenged constantly. And so these are some ideas regarding the challenges and the counterpoints. What gets in the way of compassion? This is what Roshi has to say. She writes, despite the obvious value and benefits of compassion, our world today seems to have a deficit of it. This deficit is fed by a number of factors, including our ideas about what it means to care, and the disconnection that results from our ever greater reliance on technology. Too often today, connectivity is emphasized at the cost of connection. Fast thinking is more valued than slow thinking. Growth comes at the expense of depth. Building a portfolio is valued more than building an ethical culture. And perceptions of time poverty distract us from the present moment. I believe that the antidote to all these ills is to make compassion a primary value that we bring to life within the micro community of our one-to-one interactions and within the macro community of the planet. In Buddhism, beneficial qualities of the mind have far enemies and near enemies. Far enemies are opposites. Compassion's far enemy is cruelty. Near enemies are harder to detect. They are unhelpful qualities that masquerade as helpful ones. For example, pity is a near enemy of compassion because it involves a sense of regret plus deceptive concern for those who are suffering. William Blake, for example, called pity a distraction and wrote that it divides the soul. Other near enemies of compassion include fear and even outrage. Near enemies easily disguise themselves as allies or analogues of compassion, but these emotions can drain us so much that we can't respond in healthy ways to the suffering of others, and we actually may end up doing harm. There are other obstacles and challenges to compassion. We tend to oversimplify compassion. And if we don't understand how compassion functions in our lives and in societies, we may have an aversion toward it or even fear it. We might feel that compassion is fatiguing, that it can make us sick, and that we can lose our boundaries and be judged as weak or unprofessional. We may believe that compassion prioritizes sympathy over justice, that it can be meted out indiscriminately and sometimes irrationally. For some clinicians, whether or not to cultivate compassion may be a dilemma in itself. Medical students are taught to be dispassionate in order to maintain their objectivity and make decisions based on facts rather than feelings. Many doctors also believe that suffering can be emotionally contagious and could overwhelm them if they let it in. They are also socialized to view compassion as religious, unscientific, and possibly an indication of weakness. I've told this story before, but I'd like to share it with you again because I think it illustrates the depth of compassion and its complexity too. Many years ago, we had a Labradoodle that was brought to our farm. It was somebody wasn't able to keep it as a family pet because it was killing the cats in the neighborhood. And so we brought Buddy to the farm and began training with him and trying to rehabilitate him. But there was something in this Labradoodle's nature that the moment it saw a cat, it just became this murderous, concentrated, focused creature. And one day, Buddy did get a hold of one of our farm cats and had it in its mouth, crushed it. And when I got to Buddy, after mayhem, this cat, it was actually a little kitten, kind of an adolescent aged cat. It was screaming. My kids were screaming, chasing Buddy down. Finally, I got a hold of Buddy. We released the cat from its jaws. We were all very angry at this dog. And we had to kind of remove him from the situation because we were, who knows what my kids might have hit him, yelled at him. And this was a creature, this was a being that was acting on an impulse, on some kind of nature within it that it could not control. Meanwhile, we had this cat that was dying. And I knew that this cat was going to die, and I knew that in the time it would take to bring it to the vet, 40 minutes, it would have died in the car. So I just gathered my kids around this kitty. And my kids were little. They were elementary school age. And what was fascinating, we all were very sad, obviously, and we felt for this kitty. And what was really interesting was when I went to approach this cat with an intention to bring comfort and ease, to hold the cat, to bring the cat to my kids so everybody could pet it and, offer it some love and affection. This cat hissed and growled and lashed out at us. It wanted us nowhere near it. It was kind of writhing and just thrashing around. And so what we did was, rather than get mad at the cat for denying us this opportunity to express compassion in the way that we wanted to, I invited my kids to hold hands and make a circle around the cat, giving it plenty of space. And there we just bore witness to this being slowly dying on our prairie. And I encouraged my kids to send blessings to this kitty, to its spirit, to its consciousness. I love you, kitty. Thank you for being part of our family. I'm so sorry Buddy crushed you in his jaws. I'm so sorry the dog didn't know any different. I'm sorry if you're in any pain. I hope you have some ease. I just allowed them to say whatever they wanted to say, to cry, to yell. And we just watched this kitty. And then it was very peaceful until it wasn't. And then what the cat was doing was, it was kind of in a death rattle, and it was all of its bodily functions were shutting down, and it was kind of having a bit of a seizure, and it looked like it was choking, and it was a really gruesome, scary thing to witness. And my kids were, of course, naturally wanting to run away. And so I felt like the most compassionate thing for them to do was to stay, to learn how to stay with things that are challenging. Fear, the fear of something so uncomfortable, stay with it. So I had to think quick. And I said to my kids, "Oh my God, look at you guys. The cat is getting ready to spit out its soul. That's what it's doing. It's kind of coughing out its spirit." And then it did. It just kind of was gagging, and then out came its spirit. And I said, "Look, there it goes. There goes the spirit all the way up into the world, everywhere. Now the cat's everywhere. Goodbye, kitty." And they waved, "Goodbye, kitty." And then they all decided to go off and have their own thoughts and feelings about it. That moment, that experience taught me a lot about bearing witness to things that are really difficult and noticing when I'd rather turn away and compassionately staying with it. And the act itself of staying with something is a compassionate act. Staying with your cravings, getting curious about, ooh, what is this craving? Allowing a regret to come into consciousness, and again, very gently get curious about it. Lo said something today about working with regret. That regret can often be the source of motivation to do things differently the next time. And if we're paying attention with compassion, that's precisely what it will happen. Growing up on a farm, my kids have seen a lot of death, lots of creatures. So this wasn't the first time, so it wasn't super shocking to them. It was a little shocking. They've seen worse. Staying with it, friends. Taking a look at the distractions. Taking a look at the ways our compassion is tested and challenged. This is the practice. Let's just take some moments in silence to reflect on this, and maybe you can allow yourself some space in your heart mind to bring forward a memory where you bore witness to something difficult. And just allow that to reveal whatever wisdom it has for you. And should your mind wander to your grocery list or whatever the mind wanders to, just breathe and come back to this compassionate space. friends. On the Soul Center website, on the main page, there's a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh that says, "Our life is the instrument with which we experiment with truth." So imagine if we all made an effort to bring just 1 degree more of compassion into our lives. Imagine how that would translate out into the world. Imagine the ripples of peace and ease and comfort that people would experience. Life itself would know and experience. Imagine 1 degree of compassion to transform the world. Alrighty, friends. Friends, I think we're going to end our practice on that beautiful note. And there's part of the practice. What we're practicing is we're growing our capacity for discernment, for understanding ourselves. So what that means is there's going to be times where we're going to hit that edge and we're going to be like, you know what? If I stay here, I'm going to go over the edge and create distress that isn't good for me or anybody else. So I have to leave. And there were a couple of Sangha members that were like, this is too much. I don't like this. I need to go. And bravo them for knowing themselves and honoring themselves to take care. The thing to remember, just a caveat to that practice, is we all have an inner adolescent that gets pretty riled up when we get to those edge states. And rather than employ discernment, we employ that adolescent who's like, fuck it, I'm out of here. And I'm never going back to that place. And it feels a little bit punishing. Okay? So one of the things we can be thinking about and remembering is look at the conditions that are presenting the practice. So much of what I talk about and much of what I do is intentionally designed to stir that pot. But it doesn't come from a place of mischief or even maliciousness. We're all in a safe place. This is a place where we're practicing when the conditions are good. We're at ease. Nothing's on fire. We're all a community of practitioners. We're all here to be together and to support one another. There's no real stress or challenge here. So if we are feeling that arising and we're reacting from that adolescent place, I'm out of here. What we're doing is we're rejecting the safety net. We're rejecting a place where we could really gain something and learn something. Because if we go out there when it's really stressful, when it's really hard, when life is really challenging us and we're expected to practice, you can forget it. It's not going to happen. So this is the place to practice, even when it's hard. And if you have to leave, take a minute before you do and discern, am I reacting? Or am I responding? And if you're staying, the staying can be reactive. Oh, I'm going to push through this. That's a reaction. A response is, ooh, this is really uncomfortable. Let me see how long I can stay. Okay, so those are just a couple of caveats to the practice. Watch your reactivity, whether you stay or you leave. Watch your response, whether you stay or you leave. And be gentle with yourself the whole way through. Even if your adolescent is arising, just blow them a kiss. Oh, you adolescent, there you are. You're all right. And I think we'll end it there. Lo, can you think of anything else? No? All righty. So thank you for sharing in the chat the quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. Did you see that? Okay, good. I know it's a good one, isn't it? Our life is the instrument with which we experiment with truth. And let me tell you something. One of our attachments is blaming other people. It's really fun and easy to do. So we'll look at that this month too, blame. Alrighty, friends, let's come back to a seated posture. Maybe turn your gaze inward, and let's just end our practice today with a dedication of merit. And I'd like to share with you a blessing written by John O'Donohue. And it is a blessing for friendship, because a healthy Sangha has a mixture of all kinds of wise friends. Friends that inspire and encourage us, friends that irritate and annoy us, friends that we are highly animated with, friends we hardly remember at all. That diversity is such a wonderful, wonderful place to practice if we're paying attention to our lives, to ourselves. So, in that spirit, may you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend yourself, journeying to that place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you. May it transfigure what is negative, distant, or cold within your heart. May you be brought into real passion, kindness, and belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them and be there for them and receive all the challenges, truth, and light you need. May you never be isolated, but know the embrace of your Kalyana Mitra, Anamkara, wise friend. Thank you so much for your beautiful practice, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.